So in an effort to constantly bring interesting and new watches to the channel, today I have PEREN. This is a watch that is actually based in Transylvania. So obviously Transylvania, sort of notorious for vampires and all of that. Kind of cool. And it is a Swiss-made watch though, so you do get a Swiss-made Selita SW200 inside at a very good price actually, and it's really different, something kind of special. You can see it says perennial product inside. Inside the actual box itself, it's just a cardboard box with like a leatherette sort of feel to it. On the inside of the case itself, the box case itself, it says PEREN is a brand which does not have a beginning nor an end, for it was not invented nor was it conceived. You know, pretty cool. And then it just says Transylvania right there. It's a little hard to see. Maybe I could take a picture of it and show you guys. But it's black on black. It's sort of glossy black on a flat black. They know what they were doing here. It's a little bit creepy. I like it. And then you have, you know, just a foam sort of protection. And here's the watch. So you can see immediately this watch is definitely a different looking watch. You can immediately see that this has a sterile bezel to it. It's a steel insert and there is nothing on it. There is a DLC sort of conical area of the bezel itself. It does have notches in it, and it's actually very hard to see on camera, but you can see when I move it around in the light, there are small little polished areas on the bezel, and those are the markers for the bezel. So if you really do want to time something, you can. I probably would not use this as a dive watch, but you do have a ratcheting unidirectional bezel that is actually very nice, and it does not move at all. It's a 200-meter watch. I won't call it a dive watch because, again, I don't think you're going to be going diving with something like this, but something you could go swimming with. You could definitely time things with this bezel because those notches are in different sizes, and again, I'll show pictures of that. So you could time something if you wanted to. It's not going to be the best for doing that, obviously, but it's kind of the look of this watch. It sort of looks like a field watch. It sort of looks like a dive watch. Because of that bezel, it gives you a little bit of both. You get a very nice big crown on here. It's a very nicely sized watch as well. I think it's around 39 millimeters at the case, 39.2. And then, of course, you have that bezel, which is conical. So it actually goes in a little bit, maybe a millimeter or two onto the case. So it actually looks a little bit smaller than that in person. You have a really nice true lug-to-lug with sort of cut-off lugs on here that are drilled. So you get drilled lugs for easy strap change. 48.6 millimeters, so not very big. And as I mentioned, you get a Selita movement in here is 14.2 millimeters. That's including the sapphire crystal. And you do get to see the movement from the back. So considering that you get to see the Selita SW200 from the back, and it is 200 meters of water resistance, that is actually really good. These are limited edition to 200. I think they're almost sold out of these, and they just, I think there's like 2 or 3 left on their website is what I saw. And they just came out with a new version. I think they're calling it the Rogue, the NERA Rogue, I believe it's called, and then there's the Rogue X. And man, they are cool. Now those actually get markings on the bezel, but they're getting this dial. So what they did with this dial is there's a black sort of chapter ring that goes around the dial itself. However, I think they call this a blue dial, but it is the most dark bluish green that I cannot imagine you will ever see that in a blue color. You're always going to see it in sort of a dark green or a dark blue. And then you have a chapter ring that is in black. So that sort of lends to darkening that dial as well. You have indices. Those are sort of sitting very closely into that chapter ring, and those are in white. Obviously, those are Loom. And then you have the hands, and those are filled with Loom as well. So you have a little arrow hand that's filled with Loom, and then you have sort of stick hands, and those are filled with Loom as well. Screwed in crown, as I mentioned, 200 meters of water resistance. You have the logo there. The entire case is basically bead blasted. And as I mentioned, this is a limited edition of 200 pieces, and they are handmade to order. So if you do order one, these are handmade to order. Which is a nice little touch. The only brushing that you have on here is this bezel, and it's a circular brushing, which is really nice. Just a very cool watch with a really interesting aesthetic. Nice strap on here, and then you have a very large tang buckle which is a very interesting choice to actually match this case. I'm not sure about it, but I don't think it looks terrible, and it just is signed the brand name there, and this is brushed. So just a large buckle for this watch. I don't know why they went that route, but it does look good. And then the strap is signed PEREN. The strap itself is like a distressed leather, which will obviously age pretty well. I think it's pretty nice as well. It feels very nice and is soft. I have actually worn this watch a few times since it came in. I thought it was very interesting. I wanted to show a couple of people this in person. I really like the bezel on here. I think it's one of the standout features of this watch, and because of that, it gives it a distinctive look, something that you don't see very often. Now, the case itself is pretty standard sort of dive watch case, but it is the bezel that really does give it a distinctive look. And I really like that sterile bezel because I'm not really using my watches for diving. I'm a desk diver, so this is completely fine for my everyday use. 200 meters of water resistance. You're getting a really nice dial setup on here. I really like the color of the dial, and it's 120 click rotating bezel, which, like I said, you may or may not use. Also, the movement is in-house regulated, so when they're putting the watch together for you, they regulate it in-house, which is really good. So these are Swiss made. It does say Swiss made just on the chapter ring right below there, and it says automatic limited edition, and then the name and the brand logo there at the 12 o'clock. That's it. So a very simple setup, a very simple sort of design that I think looks really good. But very quickly, let me throw it on my wrist. We'll talk about price, and then we'll do a quick loom shot. So today I have Samir on. This is their CNET in sort of a cooperation that they're doing with CNET and Manchester City Football Club. Very good looking watch, very thin actually, interesting, very interesting offering from them. Huge crown, one of the biggest crowns I've ever seen on a watch. It's awesome, especially for this size, I should say. So here it is on my 7.5-inch wrist, and you will see that this wears really nice, like a 39 millimeter. It does not wear bigger than that. Actually, I think it looks more like a 39 to 38 millimeter because of that bezel. You do have a decent lug width, or lug to lug, of I think it was around 48 millimeters I measured. So that's pretty good, and it does wear perfectly on my 7.5-inch wrist. Like I said, I've been wearing it a few times, and I think it is a very good looking watch. And it's obviously very well made. The finishing is very nice. It's bead blasted primarily, but it's very nicely done. And of course, I really do like this bezel. I've mentioned that a few times. It's actually pretty grippy too. Those polished little areas are very nice and grippy, and it spins very nicely. Almost like a fidget spinner, because you're not worried about it lining up, even though you can line it up, as I mentioned, because there are primary indices which are larger than the other little polished rectangles. So you can line it up if you want to, but you don't need to. I like that. Anyway, really quickly, I'm going to throw it under the UV light, and we'll do a quick loom shot. But quickly, let's talk about price. $525. I think there's only 2 left on their website. $525. I believe their newer models, they're actually offering a better price on. But if you are looking for this sterile bezel, it's $525. And I think that the newer versions, I think they're around $500 or maybe in the $400s, which is a really good price for something that's really well made and Swiss made. And you're getting obviously a Swiss Selita movement inside, which is great. So very quickly, a loom shot, then we'll wrap up the video. So not a ton of loom here. Obviously, the indices are just small little squares of loom, so not a lot of surface area to actually put loom, so not incredibly bright. The hands are actually nicely applied with loom. Second hand there, you can see the arrow sort of moving along there. That looks good. The indices not so liberally applied. However, everything else is decent. The only thing I would change about this watch, in my opinion, the only thing I would change about this watch is the buckle. I think the buckle's a little bit weird compared to the style of this watch. It's sort of a Panerai style big tang buckle. They put something a little bit more modern, I think. It would go with this case a little bit better, in my opinion. And I'm not sure if they're going for that modern look, but I do get a modern look when I look at this watch, when I see this watch with that sterile bezel and that black sort of, because obviously you see the black from above, from the side, sort of, you know, gives it a little bit more of a modern look. I think that a modern buckle would lend itself a little bit better. You know, you get a really nice crown on here. It's pretty big as well. Like I said, it's screwed in, it's signed, screwed in case back, 200 meters of water resistance. It's just a really good looking watch. And I usually, you know, I wear a watch and I bring it out to show people because I think it's a really good looking watch, and I think it's actually interesting, and especially for the price that they're offering it now. But guys, tell me what you think in the comments below. I want to hear from you guys. Please also don't forget to like and subscribe, hit that bell icon. It is super helpful for the channel and I very much appreciate it. It helps me bring you watches like this, interesting watches that you maybe have not seen before. Please also don't forget to follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is WatchChrisBlog. I have some links in the description. Those links are to Amazon. If you click those links and buy anything, it helps support the channel. It doesn't cost you anything extra. However, I very much appreciate it. Anyway, thank you for logging on. I'll catch you guys in the next video.